We're back, people. What is up? Nice little string going on today, going over some draft stuff. And I really wanted to go over the Dolphins roster kind of heading into next year and kind of what we're going to be looking at from a needs perspective. You know, guys that are free agents, what they'll be, looking at those spots, sort of where the draft strengths lies so far, at least at this point. We're like, we don't know exactly who we'll declare, but we can get a pretty good idea of like the strengths, like position group wise of the draft. Let's go, Ryan. All right. Dude, you'll be surprised the amount of people that type Ryan. You did correct it, though, which I think that's the first time I've seen it corrected. But yeah, I kind of have like the Dolphins free agent list pulled up going into next year because I think one thing that I've seen so far, at least with this draft, is it seems like it's pretty, like, I think the defensive position groups seem to be the deeper ones, like the more stacked groups. I think linebacker and safety is better than usual. I feel like linebacker and safety have actually been pretty weak in the past few years. But this class, I feel like there's some good linebackers and safeties. Corner and edge also pretty good. So like most of the defensive side of the ball is good, which is I think good for Miami because I think the Dolphins defense needs like a pretty much full revamp. And you also have to think like, if the Dolphins bring, whether it's the same coaching staff or a completely new coaching staff, they're going to come in and evaluate your roster. And if you really look at it, they're going to look at the parts that needs a huge talent upgrade. And I think they're going to look more at the defensive side of the ball because the offensive side of the ball will still have bodies like the O-line will still have bodies like James Daniels and Austin Jackson, even though they haven't played this year really. But those bodies will still be there. So that's something to at least keep in consideration. Not saying like, they'll ignore offensive line. They should still add to offensive line, but that might make them feel like they don't have to force it if, O-line's not the best player at the spot in the draft where you're picking, So that's something I think to keep in mind. You have to like try to get into the mind of what a new staff could potentially be thinking if they're, evaluating your roster. But yeah, defense side of the ball, I like it in the draft. I like what I've seen so far from the safety group. Dolphins are going to need safety because we can look at our roster next year. Next year, I believe most of the safeties end up becoming free agents, I think. And because you got, Melifonwu and Ashton Davis were brought in on 1-year deals and Elijah Campbell. So yeah, 3 of the 5 safeties right now that you have are going to be free agents. I think the only 2 that aren't are Minkah Fitzpatrick and Dante Trader. So that's why like I want to see like something for the rest of the season. I want the young guys to play. Like I want to see what they can get out of Trader. Like I know they said he didn't play last week because of the injury. He practiced in full yesterday, so hopefully he can see some snaps. You got to see what you have out of Trader, whether he's just a special teams guy or you can rely on him to at least be a top depth option. You have to be able to evaluate this roster. So going into next year, you have an idea of like, okay, we need to fill in a starter at this spot. So that's how I feel at safety. And then like even Minka's not like he's under contract, but Minkah is one of the guys that you can like has no guarantees left on his deal. So he is one of the guys I could easily see them like trying to move on from, whether they trade him or cut him. Even though Minka's been one of your better players this season, just based on the cap, because the Dolphins are going to need some cap help next year, and Minkah is one of those ones. So safety will be a need next year, no matter what, whether they keep Minkah or not, And the safety class is good. There's some guys that like, you got Caleb Downs at the top. There's guys like Dylan Thieneman, who's very intelligent safety from Oregon. Kamari Ramsey, very versatile guy from USC. Genesis Smith, Arizona. I think it was Arizona. But he's got a lot of talent. Like he's got good size, click and close. He's got like he can play run support in the box, but also has like the range on the back end and back ball skills. AJ Halsey from LSU, another guy who plays with a lot of toughness, very good tackler. I think that's something the Dolphins should focus on in the secondary is some tackling ability. Because I feel like the tackling's been rough. But then there's guys from Bama that are pretty good. There's a guy from Toledo. But yeah, the safety class very solid. Tao Johnson, who actually for some reason I wrote down his name twice. Utah, another good player. But yeah, safety is a position that I think is pretty strong in the draft in comparison to what we've seen in recent years, and should be a at least a decent need for Miami. It probably won't be their biggest need going into next season. It kind of that will just depend on what they do with Minka, because they could also do some different things with Minka if they wanted to. I wouldn't be surprised if Minka's ends up being traded though, because I don't even know how he's feeling about playing in Miami. But yeah, definitely want to see them give Trader more time just to see how that plays out. And let me go to the corner room now. Corner is going to be, just based on the roster, is going to be a very big need next year. It was a big need this year. It was one of those things that they kind of just ignored, and we knew it was going to be a huge, need going into the next year's draft. But after this, I believe most of those corners are free agents, because obviously you signed Jack Jones, Rasul Douglas to 1-year deals, so they're free agents. And then like Kader Kohu, who obviously isn't playing this year, he is a free agent, like a full unrestricted free agent after this year. And he's someone I wouldn't mind bringing back. Like, out of most of these free agent lists, I think most of them you can just let go, move on to different teams. I think Kohu would be someone that you could probably get back relatively cheap to at least be your nickel, and the Dolphins kind of, are going to be a position where they have to take some of those types of options. And I think Kohu, bringing him back as a nickel is not a bad idea. But a lot of other guys are free agents. You got, I think even like Bonner's like an exclusive rights free agent. Bonner's someone I wanted to talk about because Bonner has been playing the past 2 weeks. Him and Jack Jones have been rotating. I would love to see Bonner just continue to see this playing time, because I actually think he's looked fairly competent in coverage. Like, he hasn't got a lot of targets at his way yet, but he looks pretty solid in coverage so far. I want to see a bigger sample size, so hopefully that continues, that he continues to see playing time. Because I've said it before, like, out of those young guys, out of those young undrafted free agents, I always thought Bonner was the most talented, and I think he's showing it. I also want to see Duck. I think Duck's starting to return from injury. I wouldn't mind seeing Duck out there. Because corner, you got to see what you got out of the young guy. So, like, if you need to bench a guy like Jack Jones, I'm totally okay with that. I understand playing Rasul because he's actually been playing pretty solid. But pretty much everyone else is free agent outside of the young guys. So corner I see being like a very different room next year. If you want to go at corner at the top, there's guys like Terrell. Monsieur Delane is one of the best players in this draft from LSU. Then there's some sleepers. So there's some undersized dogs. I always love some undersized corners who play with like that dog mentality, very physical. They might end up being nickels, but D'Angelo Pons from Indiana, and then Chandler Rivers from Duke. He's going to be one of my guys. He's a little bit undersized, but he's twitchy. He's instinctive. He can play inside, outside, run support. Very fluid player that has like a very good feel, like very good spatial awareness, good in zone. But yeah, there's some good corners there. Colton Hood from Tennessee. You want a physical guy. Same with Julian Neal from Arkansas. Another very physical outside corner. I think the Dolphins probably want to add a guy that has some physicality in the back end, because I think that's something that the corner room has lacked. Outside of like some of the talent they've lacked this year, is just, guys that will go out there and play with some very high physicality. Yeah, you mentioned Jason Marshall. He, I believe, is practicing this week. He's on IR, but his practice window is opened. So I would like to see Marshall come back too and get some playing time, because we got to see what we have out of the young guys, And Marshall is someone that they might put back in the nickel, but I also wouldn't mind seeing Marshall play on the outside, because I do think that is more natural position. Because we do need to see, like, hey, do any of these young guys have starter capability in going into the future? Because that could change how you kind of look at your whole group back there going into next season. Stop drafting scheme fits and draftability and heart. I mean, I think if you got to draft all three, because if you ignore scheme fits, that's where, that's where a lot of draft guys fail, is they just end up on the wrong team. Like a lot of like guys that you end up like being like, wow, I was kind of wrong about that guy. And then they go to a different team and then it's like, oh, that's the guy I saw in film in college. Because like fit is very, very important. So it can be something you ignore. Do you think there's a realistic shot that we draft Jordan Tyson? I mean, I would say it's unlikely. I don't think anything's out of play because so much can change, right, Louis? I would say receiver is one of the less likely positions they would pick in the first round. But think about it. Like, say you go into next year's free agency and you like hard go defense in free agency and you feel like pretty comfortable to just go BPA, and maybe Jordan Tyson ends up being BPA and you kind of ignored receiver, in free agency. Then there's a world that happens, but I would say it's fairly unlikely. But it's so far away, I wouldn't count it out. And honestly, I'll say this. Might be a hot take, but I might have Carnell Tate, the Ohio State receiver, as my receiver 1. But I like this receiver class is good. Receiver class is good. It's been much better. Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon, Denzel Boston, Chris Brazzell, Chris Bell, Jeremy Bernard. These are all guys who have improved this year pretty drastically and like made the receiver class a lot better. So if they do want to take receiver, you don't need to take one in round 1. You can still get some good guys day 2, probably day 3 as well. Who's the best QB under center? Probably Ty Simpson. Dante Moore is also good under center. Yeah, I'll get to linebacker in a second, Hog Dog. But just to go to QB real quick, I've been watching more Ty Simpson. Bro, I'm becoming like, I'm getting very close to just being like, dude, Ty Simpson's the real deal, special type of real deal, you know? Like, if the Dolphins take QB at the top of this draft, I hope it's Ty Simpson as of right now, because he has all of the things I look for from like, he just understands the game. You could tell he feels it pre-snap to post-snap. Like, he understands what he's seeing, his feel for the game, his feel in the pocket, while also having like good arm talent, good athleticism, like the whole sort of package, I think, from Ty Simpson. The poise, he plays very like very solid under pressure. Like, there's still some like experience things he needs to learn because, you know, this is his first year as a starter with like, you know, throwing the ball away at times. But I don't know. I'm getting very close to being like, Ty Simpson is special. You know, I like Fernando Mendoza. I like Dante Moore, but like Ty Simpson is starting to separate himself in my mind, at least. But yeah, secondary, just to finish up on secondary next year, let's let the young guys play to kind of finish out this year, see what you have. And then next year, I think the secondary is going to be like very revamped. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, like, say out of like the 5 starters, because usually, you know, have 5 DBs out there as your main guys. I wouldn't be surprised if all 5 are different, honestly. But like, I think 4 will be. 4 of your starters will be different this year, going into next year. So let's see what we got of the young guys. At least feel comfortable if we feel good about them as depth guys and stuff like that. And then yes, linebacker, Hog Dog. Is Brooks on the block? I don't think so. I don't think that. I know they restructured his contract the other day. I think that was just for cap purposes because they were very low on cap, and like I think they were just being safe, like, you know. And they can always carry it over into next year. I would be pretty surprised if Brooks was traded because he's one of the only guys, like, he's not a free agent after this year. So he is actually someone who could be a piece for you, at least long term. Like, I know he's a free agent in 2 years, so it is, you know, not out of the realm of possibility. But Brooks has still been one of your better players this season defensively. And I think we know Brooks can be even better, I think, with better players around him. And I think this is the year to do it. This linebacker class is very good. Linebacker classes have not been good at all in recent times. And I wouldn't mind, like, linebacker across the board, first round, second round, third round, whatever it is, like, best player available. Like, the Ohio State guys, Arvell Reed, Sonny Styles, very good players. There's CJ Allen from Georgia, another good player. There's some other, you know, sleeper guys. You know, Anthony Hill from Texas. Jacob Golday from Cincinnati. This was probably going to be one of my guys in this class. Jake Golday. He's from Cincinnati. He has, like, ideal linebacker size. Like, he is a bigger body linebacker, which is good. And he plays with that level of physicality, but he's also really athletic. Like, his range is really good. So he has all the physical traits, and he plays with instincts. And I'm seeing this guy ranked, like, outside the top 100. He's one of those guys you see early ranks where he's at, and you're like, oh, with an offseason, you know, whether he goes to the Senior Bowl, you know, the Combine, all of that, I'm like, this guy's going to raise his stock and go higher. Like, you always see those guys every year, and I think he will be one. But yeah, linebacker, it's not a position you need to completely revamp because Dotson's still under contract. They could potentially move on from Dotson because it's his final year, so they could, you know, try to save cap by cutting Dotson. Willie Gay and KJ Britt are free agents. Jordan Brooks, you know, still should be one of your starters next year, in my opinion. I draft one linebacker, whether you keep Dotson or not. If you keep Dotson, I think he should be your third linebacker, main backup, because I don't think he's a starter, in my opinion. Draft a linebacker, and that can completely change your linebacker room, just drafting one of these studs, because there's a lot of good players in this class. So you don't need to completely overhaul the linebacker room, but like one just taking one stud relatively early would be, I think, do wonders. Who's a good Ty Simpson comp in the pros? Oof. Who is a good Ty Simpson comp in the pros? Honestly, like, I think there might be some Burrow to his game. But I don't know. That's not like a direct comp either. But there is some of that. But I'm a big Ty Simpson fan. But you need, especially if Chubb's just the entire entire secondary, huge revamp. Linebacker, just add a stud there, and then let's go to defensive front. Honestly, so your entire defense is going to need new bodies. D tackle might be the only position. Like, yes, you can upgrade it, but if you really think about it, it was one of the positions they attacked in last year's draft. They drafted 3 guys. You're still going to have Sealer under contract for sure. You got Kenneth Grant, who's starting to make strides. Jordan Phillips seems like he can at least be a run defender, nose tackle type. So, like, you can add to the D tackle room, but it's probably the only position on defense you don't need to focus on relatively early in the draft, you know? And hopefully with, like, you know, the rookies take a jump going into year 2. That's what you're hoping for. And then you're hoping Sealer with, like, better players around him can return to form. Because you still see the flashes of Sealer on the film. Like, he's not just completely awful now. Like, he has bad plays for sure, more so than in the past. But you still see the flashes of, like, old Sealer where he, like, dominates a rep. It's just he's not making those as often. And when he does make them, it's been, like, kind of plays away from him where he dominates an offensive lineman, or, you know, the guys around him didn't help him out as much. So D tackle is probably the one position on defense where they might feel okay going into next year. You can still add to it, but it probably doesn't need to be a priority, you know? And then edge. Edge is I think a position, that group that will be different, because Phillips is a free agent, and then Chubb's not a free agent, but he's someone, you know, who's on the trade block, and I could easily see them moving on from him, even if they don't trade him during this season. I think Chop is like the only guy under contract, really. That's why the Dolphins need to start playing Chop more, because we need to know exactly what we have at a Chop. We've seen the high ends of Chop. We've seen the low ends. I still think Chop is a pretty good player, because these last couple weeks, like when Chop's played, like he's looked pretty good. It's just he hasn't played a ton of snaps. So get Chop Robinson more snaps. He is one of the players on this team that I believe is a long-term building block. You know, there's not a lot of them, but Chop is one of them in my opinion. So edge is in the edge class, I think it's pretty good. You know, we got Ruben Bain at the top. I recently just started watching a lot of Kedrick Falk from Auburn. He's another bigger body guy that has like some positional versatility, a line on the inside, very good athlete. He started to be more productive this year. I think that's always been kind of one of his problems, is maybe he's not the most productive player. Kind of what like Michael Williams was for Georgia last year, where he's more of that bigger body, like hold his own at the point of attack as a run player. And then, you know, when he does make an impact as a pass rusher, it's been just from like his athletic tools. So he still needs some development, but I think Falk is someone who will still go very high. Texas Tech has 2 good pass rushers in David Bailey and Romello Height. There's TJ Parker out of Clemson. So there's some good edge options that you can add in the draft for sure to match with Chop. And if the Dolphins say the Dolphins pick top 5 and they don't go quarterback, Ruben Bain Jr. is easily one of the top players to take in that area. Like if they didn't go Bain, say they pick top 5 and they don't go Bain and they don't go QB, I don't know what they would do, because it'd be like, I guess it'd be like Delane at corner or Caleb Downs at safety, Arvell Reese at linebacker, but like those aren't positions you really take in the top 5. Maybe corners can go top 5, but like safety and linebacker aren't really positions you take top 5. So it'd be like, or you could also take O-line, I guess, too, but like I feel like that's even a little bit early for most O-line in this class. But yeah, let me see what you guys are saying. Yeah, so edge to secondary and first round, or we go offense this time around, O-line, QB, decisions. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're picking top 5, QB has to be heavily considered. But if it's not QB, I think you just go best player available, which would then be probably an edge or a corner, just based on what I've seen so far, you know? Jordan Tyson, wide receiver. What about him, Skunk Ape? He's a very good player. He's someone I do think will be very good in the NFL. I don't understand why everyone is giving up on Graham Wilkins took time as the people call him a bust. Yeah, D tackle is one of the positions that takes time to develop. To be fair, Louis, I do think people have started to feel a little bit better about him because his last 2 games have been better. And I think that is very encouraging. He still needs to definitely develop and take some jumps for sure. But I think just like from a physical standpoint, it seems like the game slowed down for him and he's feeling better. Jordan Tyson, you're saying you would like take him top 5? Okay, so I did mention this a bit earlier. I don't even know if I'm going to have... I think Tyson's very good, and I'm a big fan of him. I just don't think he'll be BPA at that point for me. I actually have Carnell Tate, right there with him as, the battle for receiver 1. And I just don't know if Tyson's, Tyson, to take Tyson top 5, to take a receiver top 5 for the Dolphins... He would have to be way better than a Ruben Bain, or way better than Delane, which I don't think he is as a prospect. And then also, they're still quarterback. But yeah, he is very good though. I think Tyson's going to be a very solid pro. I think Carnell Tate is really good. I think Makai Lemon Makai Lemon's the Egbuka of the class, who's just going to be a very good player right away and just has a super high floor, He'll be inflated because of his position and team needs. I mean, yeah, I think this receiver class is actually pretty good. Pretty good. I also could see tight end going pretty high, but yeah, just to finish off defense as a whole, let's let these young guys play for the Miami Dolphins. Let's see what we got out of them, see if we can feel comfortable about them, any of them, if they did have to play next season, can any of them improve themselves as starters? Can any of them improve themselves maybe as top depth guys? So you have a better view of going into next year, because the defense is going to need a complete overhaul anyways, even if those rookies step up. But we just at least gives us a better idea of how they feel. And it just feels like D tackle is probably the one position based on what you're going to have on the roster next year, because you're going to have Sealer and all the rookies for sure. It's one of the positions that actually has bodies. Every other position, you probably only going to have one edge, maybe 2. You're probably only going to have, 1, maybe 2 linebackers. Corner, all the linebackers or corners you're going to have on the roster are going to be young guys who would be rosterable guys anyways. And then same with safety. It depends what you do with Minka. My face if we get the number 1 pick. Yeah, if we get the number 1 pick and let's say Mendoza, Simpson, and Moore all declare, I would take Ty Simpson at quarterback. I also think another possibility, if you do pick 1, is a trade back to pick up a bunch of picks, because the Dolphins have so many needs. If they don't feel comfortable with the QBs, they could trade back. That is also a possibility. But who knows? Trade back, when you pick high, trade back becomes more of a likelihood. Ryder, do you think wide receiver is that big a need when we have a lot of solid depth with Washington Brothers, NWI, and Eskridge? You know what? Let's go to offense. So we just did defense, and we can start with receivers. I think receiver for the Dolphins, this is how I look at receiver. I think you are just missing a number 2 that complements Waddle. Because I think you're going to move on from Tyreek, right? He's coming off the major injury. I think they're going to move on from him anyways. Waddle kind of takes that Tyreek. Well, and this wide receiver 2 they bring in could also be the wide receiver 1. Waddle could be the 2, whatever. I think Malik is a good number 3 sort of gadget guy, number 3, number 4 gadget guy. I like Malik in that role, but he's not a number 2. So I feel like you have a lot of receiver spots filled, but you don't really have a number 2 guy. So I think that's something they should be looking for next year. And I think it should be somebody that complements Waddle's skill set. I don't want to get a Tyreek Hill clone and have 2 of the same again, And I think there's a lot of guys in this class that can complement who are either, way different or just a decent amount different, because there's guys there. There's, Denzel Boston. If you want a bigger body receiver, Denzel Boston from Washington. He's 6'4", very good at the catch point. Carnell Tate's another one who's a taller guy, but also just a very good all-around receiver. Jordan Tyson, he's another one who's I think he's 6'1", so, he's got decent size. And he's also just a well-rounded guy who could complement Waddle too. Chris Brazzell from Tennessee, another guy with deep speed, but he's very tall. Jeremy Bernard, I think one of you mentioned him from Alabama. I also agree that he has some Hines Ward sort of vibes. Just a dog, just a guy that gets the job done. He's not going to blow you away with his athleticism, but he gets the job done. Louis, hey, thanks for joining up as a member. Appreciate that. Oh, dang, Louis, shout out to my guy. Yeah, you guys joining up as members really helps out the channel, and you get early access. I got some draft videos up, some film breakdowns that you can check out. He gifted it to Balake. Shout out Balake. And you guys can check out my you get early access to these draft videos, and I think I'm gonna make the Ruben Bain one public soon, but the other draft videos will be members only for a while. I'll probably release them kind of slowly because the draft's kind of far away. Yeah, you just need a compliment to Waddle, and it doesn't need to be necessarily like a huge 6'4" guy. That's also a compliment to Waddle, but it could be a Tyson type of guy who's like pretty good size, but is more known for being like possession, run good routes, while Waddle can be like your vertical option, But yeah, receiver is not the biggest need on Miami, but I do think you need to add at least one good player at that spot. And it's not a necessity. It is a position that I think they could end up ignoring, because they have so many needs at other spots. But it is something to at least talk about. I don't think we should just completely ignore it. What about Surratt? Yeah, Elijah Surratt from Indiana. If you want to go a later round guy, a mid-round guy, yeah, he fits that sort of complement. The receiver class is pretty good. I haven't watched everyone yet, so there will be guys that I'll find. Like, receiver is usually one of the deeper positions in every class. So, like, you don't have to take a receiver super early. You could probably find a receiver in round 3. Because I think the Dolphins have 2 round 3 picks, right? So you can probably find a receiver in round 3 that could potentially be a receiver 2 for you. Maybe not right away, but it's a Balake. Yeah, it's a run. We aren't going to draft a linebacker or a guard in the top 5 nor a safety. No, I agree. But I do think if they pick like in the 10 range, I think those positions become, just based on this draft, I think they become more likely. Like an Arvell Reese and Caleb Downs, say you're picking like 10, become more enticing because they are very, very good and they could just be like too hard to ignore, But like top 5, I think it's quarterback. I think it's edge, corner, most likely as of right now. Maybe O-line, but I think O-line, like tackle would definitely be. It just depends. I'm still not sold on the tackle class yet, but we'll see. You think they trade Jalen Wright? And if so, what value do you think they can get? I mean, I think it's a possibility, Nicholas, but I would like to give Jalen Wright a shot over these next 2 games before the trade deadline and see what you have. Because maybe you could raise his value too. It could raise his value if he looks pretty good at these next 2 games. But also, like, I feel like they got to give him a chance, Like, they haven't given him a chance to play this season, Because he did get a little unlucky because he was going to be the number 2 back this year. And then right before the season started, he got hurt. And then Ollie Gordon has kind of just kept that. And then, like, even Ollie Gordon, who's the number 2 back, isn't really playing. Like, only Achane is really getting the touches at running back right now. So I feel like they should at least give Jalen Wright a shot. And if they don't give him a shot, I don't imagine you would get much for him. I feel like you'd probably just get like a late pick. You believe me now about Tua and Waddle overrated? Waddle, no. Not at all. Because he had one slow game in a rainy, high, windy weather one. No. Waddle's been like one of our best players. I wonder if yeah. I mean, honestly, Greg, I would guess like a 6th. Nicholas, I'd guess like a 6th at most. Because he just hasn't played. What do you think of Proctor? I'm so sick of watching Proctor can catch and play Wildcat. To be fair, I haven't watched Proctor yet as like a tackle. I have seen the Wildcat stuff, and that stuff is pretty funny, He is very athletic. And also, I don't want to talk about Tua very much. Obviously, he's playing bad this year. But I think people are being disingenuous and acting like this is kind of who Tua has always been. I think, his confidence is shot, and I think the injuries have caught up to him, And I honestly don't think I've ever really overrated Tua. Like I never was anyone who said he was elite or great. I always talked about Tua as him being like a good NFL quarterback. And when like the situation around him was right, he played really good. When it wasn't around him, he played bad. And I think that showed him this year. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Tua went to a different team, better situation, and played good again. You know, I don't think that's crazy. But I don't really want to talk about Tua. I feel like I've talked about Tua way too often. People still leave comments about Tua on non-Tua videos. Who are the don't touch players for you? For me, HN, Waddle, and last 2 rookie classes, not I'm willing to hear bids. Honestly, I probably am pretty same spot for you, Nicholas. I mean, I'm sure some of the rookies from the last 2 classes I could hear bids for, but like, I don't think I would listen for Paul or Chop. I don't really see the point in that. Like, I don't think you get like blown away offers for them. Yeah, I'm not trading Waddle at all. I'm not trading HN unless you got some crazy offer. I think that's probably it. I think everyone else is on the table because I think everyone else might not be long term, you know? I don't think you can trade Sealer due to cap implications, so he would probably be another name you throw in there just because I don't think it would really mess you up. And then there's other players I probably wouldn't trade, but like I would listen. Like Jordan Brooks, Aaron Brewer, I probably wouldn't trade them, but I would listen to see what people have to say. But yeah, let's go to the rest of this. Yeah, so we talked about receiver. Let's go to tight end. We've talked a lot about Kenyon Sadiq. I did just make a Kenyon Sadiq video. It is currently members only, but that will come out eventually. Sadiq is a dog. That guy is super athletic and has some of the better run blocking film you'll see from a tight end. I think tight end is one of those positions that gets super undervalued in the end, like because it's not a premium position, but I think it's one of the bigger difference makers on offense. Like if you have an all-around stud, because I think it's very hard to find. I think it changes how teams have to play you, like how their run fits play, how their like personnel packages are, like especially like if your guy is someone that can be a very big impact as a run blocker and as a pass catcher, like teams are put in like a horrible position because then they're like, oh, do we bring in an extra linebacker to stop the run? But then if we do that, like this guy is going to torch us in the pass game. Do we bring in an extra DB? But this guy gets up to a DB and blocks him. He's going to absolutely put him in the dirt. That's why like such a good tight end is so valuable. I look at Kittle. Look at Kittle just returned last week for the Niners, and he didn't catch a pass, and he made a huge difference just in their run game alone. That's why like I've been looking, for a tight end. It changes the angles. It changes the number game up front. Mismatches, coverages. It literally affects the entire defense. And I think Sadiq is the best all-around player there. There's some other interesting names. I think Oscar Delp from Georgia is underrated. I don't know why Georgia doesn't use him as a pass catcher very often, because this guy's an elite athlete and like has insane acceleration. They use him as an inline blocker, and he's not even like the greatest inline blocker. He plays with a lot of effort there. I think he's a better in pass protection than as a run blocker. But Oscar Delp is someone that I think will be a better pro than he is a college player, because for some reason Georgia just doesn't throw him the ball. Then there's some other interesting names too there as well. I think tight end is a position they will be going after. I believe, so Waller will obviously not be here, right? And I think Julian Hill is a restricted free agent after this year anyways. So tight end will be completely different. Like Tanner Connor is a restricted free agent. So I think everyone on the roster right now at tight end is a free agent next year. So tight end, I think, is the one position is completely wiped out. You could completely start over if you wanted to. I'm guessing they'll bring Julian Hill back, especially if it's the same coaching staff, which, I mean, it probably won't be. So maybe then they completely start over. That wouldn't surprise me, actually. If it's a new coaching staff, we have a completely different tight end room, which wouldn't be mad about. Even though I will give Julian Hill his credit, he has been better this year. Do you see centers need for 20? Isn't this a contract year for Brewer? We have Brewer under contract until he's a free agent in 2027. So he's not a free agent after this year. So we do have Brewer next year, unless that's what you mean. Any GM names you're looking at? I've seen some names thrown around. I don't like I've said this before. I don't really know what the best GMs would be, because if you're not in the room, it's very hard to know, like, what kind of say they had over like the prospects. I would probably just go take like, an assistant GM from the better drafting teams and hope that he was a big part of that. Like, I've seen like Dodd's name thrown out. I believe he's with the Colts. A few other guys, you want to attack someone from like the Ravens scouting department, things like that. Teams that draft well, just find someone from there and hope that they had a big say in that room. And then coach. I mean, I'm up in the air on the coaching stuff as well. I'm kind of just waiting to see like the names that are kind of thrown around, and then like looking at them like scheme wise, because coaching you can at least learn like how good they are scheme wise. Like I've seen the Chris Shula thrown around from the Rams D coordinator. He's done a good job. Joe Brady, offensive coordinator for the Bills. They both have ties to Miami just because Shula obviously, and then Joe Brady is grew up a Miami Dolphins fan. There's some other interesting names, some former head coaches. Maybe we see who gets fired if they wanted to bring some of those guys in. But who knows? How does Warren look at 13 now? Hey, you know me. I've been pushing tight end for years, and honestly, like, I don't know when it happened, because there's always position. Like, I've been doing the scouting thing for a long time, and I always felt better. Like, receiver and secondary have always been my most comfortable, because that's what I played, and I feel very comfortable doing that. And then I felt like I've gotten really good at linebacker. But I don't know what happened. I feel like tight end has been my biggest hits. Like, I've been like better at predicting tight end success than any other position. I feel like I've just found like what translates well. And Tyler Warren was the ideal translator of what works in college and works very quickly in the pros. But yeah. I love, you get a chance at a stud tight end. I'm all over it. But yeah, that's sort of, the tight end room will be completely different next year, I think. O-line. So O-line actually is an interesting spot, because obviously we need to add to it. But realistically, everyone is under contract. Like, obviously you're going to have Paul. You're going to have Jonah on the roster. You're hoping Jonah takes a huge step, because you're going to need that. But you still have Brewer under contract for another year. You'll still have James Daniels under contract. Obviously, that's, James Daniels and Austin Jackson both under contract. But there's question marks there because they haven't really played at all this season. I think that what happens with them kind of depends on if they return to end the season and if they stay healthy. So technically, your starting five coming into the year are all still under contract. But you definitely still have to look at offensive line in the draft, because I think you have to at least look at right tackle because of Austin Jackson's injury history. And then you should at least be looking to add a guard, whether it's in free agency or the draft, someone that can at least compete with a guy like Jonah or compete with James Daniels if Daniels is still injured, or maybe they want to move on from Daniels. I don't know what that would look like. But technically, O-line, like, you're going to have more, but that's why, like, you have to think of, like, what will the new coaching staff, if a new coaching staff comes in, what will their scheme be? Because that's very important for the O-line. And then also, like, what will if you have a new general manager, if he looked at the roster, he'd be like, O-line is one of the positions where we actually have bodies in. he might, not put as many resources into it, even though they still should, which I do believe they still add resources for sure. But I don't think it will be the main focus. I know O-line will always be the main topic for Dolphins fans, and it should be a main topic. But I do think there is probably bigger needs on defense. But O-line cannot be ignored. At least got to add someone that can play right tackle. Whether they do that round 1, round 2, free agency, whatever. And then I think you got to at least add some competition at guard. At least one guy that can at least be solid level, in case Jonah doesn't develop or Daniel still has the injuries. And I don't think like cap wise they can even move on from Jackson, and I'm fine keeping him around, but they have to at least bring in someone that can either start over him or is good enough to start if he misses time. BPA, yeah, BPA for sure. Like, Dolphins have so many needs, you should be going BPA. What's going on here? Oh yeah. How about Chris? Yeah, I mentioned his name a little bit earlier. He's a possibility that I'm not necessarily against. I would have to watch more of the Rams defense, like in like very closely to like see what his scheme is like, and then also hear him talk, because that is important. I think we get to see the interviews and what their game plan is. That what's something that's very important is what coaching staff they bring in, because that can be a huge difference. What offense, like if you're bringing in a defensive head coach, offensive coordinator is so important, so important. Stick with BPA at all times, forget draft funding. I mean, I agree. I'm a big BPA. I'm like 99% BPA, and then the 1% need is like, if you're at the top of the draft and the QB is good enough, like you really like the QB, he might not be BPA, he might be second or third best player on your board, but you desperately need quarterback, then like that's like the only time I'd be like, oh, don't technically take, but you still love the quarterback, so you take him. That's like the only time. But yeah. And then to running back. Running back isn't very strong in the draft, I don't think. And then it's not a position, like Dolphins could still draft running back, but I don't think it's a position they necessarily need to put a ton of focus into. And if they do add a running back that can be like a starter, like a workhorse guy, I wouldn't mind that, because then it would allow Achane to be, probably prolong his career, allow you to use him a little more as like a gadget receiver type, while still giving him carries just to maybe maximize that stuff. Bro, they ain't firing McDaniel. I mean, it's definitely a very real possibility. I mean, I think it's more likely they fire him than don't. I mean, I'm not saying he's gone for sure, but Vrabel's not a QB guy, and look how the Pats are doing. Maybe it's not Vrabel. Yeah, but I just think typically I prefer offensive coaches, to be honest, because most of the top teams in the NFL right now, like a vast majority of them, are offensive minded. I do think Vrabel did luck out a little bit from going with, because Drake May is playing at such a high level. Like, I liked Drake May a lot, and I had a feeling he was going to take a big jump, and I think that has obviously helped him. That helps out a lot of coaches when you go to a team that ends up having, a stud quarterback, because that has been sort of Vrabel's kind of downfall. Is obviously he does a lot of the good stuff right, but then you get the stud QB, he does the defensive stuff very well. It works out. Yeah, and then QB as well. We've talked about that a lot. I don't know how that will play out. I think that kind of depends. If we had a better line, Ollie could workhorse. I like Ollie. I just don't know if I see. We are signing Achane? What do you mean? Like to a long-term deal? I mean, maybe. I mean, he's not a free agent for a bit. I don't think he's a free agent until... where is it? Yeah, he's a free agent in 2027, so they would have to either extend him next year or then sign him the year after. I like Ollie. I just don't know if I see him as a full-on like workhorse. I'm sure he could do it in some games, but I don't know if that's like the best use for his skill set. I think he's a guy that does a very good job in the short yardage stuff. He's a guy that can, take some carries for you. But I don't think he's the ideal workhorse. Like Daniel stay as OC if we get another head coach, or now we clean house. I don't think that's ever been done before, where a guy goes from head coach to OC. I think it's very likely they're more like to clean house. I do think McDaniel will go somewhere and probably find success as OC, though, as long as he just goes to the right spot. It's probably better for him anyways. McCarthy, Kingsbury, Spagnuolo. I'm a no on McCarthy. Personally, I'm not a Mike McCarthy fan. I think Mike McCarthy, just honestly, I'm not a fan of Mike McCarthy in general, but just watching Mike McCarthy, one of my biggest pet peeves for head coaches is how they manage the clock. And Mike McCarthy is one of the worst clock management guys I've ever seen in terms of like how to use his timeouts. And to me, when I see a head coach can't manage how to use timeouts, it makes me feel like Like they can't do anything. It's probably the most frustrated I get actually watching football games live is when like it's like the one thing. It's the one thing I know I could do better than NFL coaches is manage the clock by knowing when to use timeouts. Because I'm like, how are 80% of NFL coaches absolute fools when it comes to using timeouts? You know, it blows my mind. I'm like, they understand football, but they do not understand math. It's like I know I could do that better. Obviously, not the coaching part. And honestly, I don't know if Kingsbury would leave or Spagnuolo would leave either. They would be interesting second-time head coaches, though. Kingsbury, I mean, they both have their question marks because of how they failed the first time. But I do think they're at least good offensive and defensive-minded coach. I don't even think McCarthy's a good offensive-minded coach, like as a play caller. Like his work in Dallas, like look how much better the Cowboys are without McCarthy as a play caller and as a head coach. Like I think if you want to be average, you want to be the assigned McCarthy. But other than that, like I wouldn't mind the other two. But I just really dislike Mike McCarthy as a coach. We'd have two Mikes with bad play clock management. Yeah, McDaniel is also bad at it. But like nothing. I don't know if anyone beats McCarthy. Seattle, DC, or OC, they're both quite good. I'd have to check out to see what's going on over there, but I do think McDonald's done a really good job. I know their head coach. I don't know if that's sort of kind of carried them. Would you hire Bevel as head coach? I don't think so. Kelvin Shepard. He's done a pretty good job with Detroit this year. I don't know if he's ready to be head coach, because isn't this his first time as even like a defensive coordinator? He might need a little bit more time, but I do like Kelvin Shepard. Like what he did last week with the Lions defense when they had, I think all 5 of their starters were out in the secondary, and like how they shut down the Bucs offense was very impressive. What's up, Dro? Thoughts on Arch Manning? I mean, he's been horrible this year. Yeah. Yeah, Grant, we talked a little bit about Chris Shula earlier. I'm not against it for sure. I don't mind going after the McVay tree. I like what McVay does. And I mean, I don't even mind going after like an offensive guy under the McVay tree. I don't know if they have anyone over there, but I just like what McVay does. I think McVay is very good at his job. Okay. But yeah, I think that's all the positions we want to talk about. Sort of, you know, what's going to be the big needs going into next year. Because you're kind of going to be revamping. A lot of positions are going to be very different. Like every tight end's a free agent. Your secondary, I think, will be like almost completely different. Maybe like one guy is a starter that sticks around. I think you're going to probably draft a linebacker to team up with Jordan Brooks because I think the linebacker class is strong. D tackle is probably the only position on defense that will be like probably look very similar because you have bodies there still. But yeah. Yeah, any questions? Because that was pretty much everything I wanted to go over. Any final questions? Guess I didn't talk about this game coming up. Dolphins play the Falcons. I believe Penix is injured, right? Is Penix going to play? I mean, either way, Cousins their backup. I don't think much will change whether Penix is playing or not. It is in Atlanta. It's in a dome. I actually wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins have a pretty good day offensively. Because the Falcons defense really struggles to stop the run. So the Dolphins would have to commit to the run. Who knows if they'll do that, but I do think the Dolphins could find some success running the ball. The defense has played better. They played better versus the Browns, but also could have been just the weather helping them out and the Browns having a bad offense. I just don't know how they're going to stop Bijan. But yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if it's close. I mean, most games have been close this season. I'm not surprised the Browns game wasn't close because it got out of hand early and then they were never going to score a lot of points in that type of game anyways. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's close and they lose close. Pretty much the story of the season. Or do you want to win the rest of the season or lose? Well, if they win the rest of the season, that means they make playoffs. So I would say win out. I mean, I'm never going to root for them to lose, but I will say I haven't been like mad from them losing recently. Like it is what it is. Tyler Algier. I do like Algier. I was a fan of Algier coming out. Okay. What's for lunch? I don't know. I'm probably going to go to the market after this. I'm probably going to make like steak and rice or something. Maybe chicken and rice. What have you seen from Jonah lately? I think Jonah is probably he's definitely the rookie I'm most concerned with. I think he'll take the longest to develop if he ever does quite develop. I do think he's going to get better, but like, is it ever going to be enough? Who knows? I do think the last couple of weeks he's looked better in terms of like overall play, but like his ugly reps are still so ugly, you know? Like they're really bad. Like he gets beat horribly, but I think he's not maybe having them as many, and like the rest of the game he looks fine. But the ugly reps are really ugly. Maui Go as a right tackle. He's a possibility. I also wouldn't be surprised if Team Senium has a guard. He's a dog, though. And I do think the Dolphins need some dogs. He could be someone you play as a guard, and then if Jackson got injured, you move him out to tackle. When do you go to Quinn Ewers just so see what he can do? I think you probably go to Quinn Ewers if you like fire people early. I still think that's like a few weeks away. I think until like I don't think the Dolphins are gonna like give up on the season until they're like mathematically eliminated. So I don't know, maybe like a few weeks. Give the kid a chance, because then you still give him some games. You don't need that many games to really see what you got. What college football games will you be watching this weekend? I actually don't even know who plays this weekend. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts? I have not watched those guys yet, Brad. I'm a little bit behind on the O-line class as of now because I wasn't even super impressed by a lot of the top guys. So I was like, oh, if the top guys aren't impressing me, and like this class is probably not that good at O-line. So I've watched more defense so far than offense. But yeah, I'll get to O-line eventually. Ooh. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys. Oh yeah, so I think before I leave, I'll probably make the Ruben Bain film breakdown public tomorrow, so that will be for everyone to see if you want to watch Ruben Bain Jr. My film breakdown on him. Probably the top guy in the class, in my opinion. Then what RBs do you like? Running back's another position. Running back's probably the position I watched least of. I've only seen like Jeremiah Love and Jonah Coleman. Coleman seems like my kind of back, though, from Washington. Yeah, Utah tackle's probably the best tackle. The right tackle. Fano, not the other one. But yeah, thank you for watching. I don't really know what the plan is for next week because they play a Thursday night game after next week, so there probably won't be that chance to make that many videos on whatever happens. So see you guys next time. Peace.